Welcome to a very special JS Report. This week we have Coach Keith Wood in the studio. Well, it's not really a studio, in my office. And Coach Wood is here to promote his book. Also reflect back on his career. If you know Keith Wood, you know him as a man who loves history. You know Coach Wood, you know him as a man who had success on the basketball court for nearly 20 years with a simple philosophy: God, family, school, then ball. And a lot of young men have been blessed and benefited from that philosophy. But he's also been blessed because as a father of three, he's raised three amazing sons. All of them have been champions in their own way and were a very important part of the Millington community. Because Keith Wood was a very important part of the Millington community. But Memphis is his new home. A boy from upstate New York has made Memphis his home. And how he's done that, he took his love of basketball, his love of history, and combined it into an amazing book called Memphis Hoops. So make sure you check it out. And he's here to talk about that today. So a man that was smart enough to marry an amazing woman who has a bulldog mentality, Mississippi State, go Bulldogs, hey, is here to show how his life has blossomed into today and talk about not only his career, but how Memphis has helped shape him to make an amazing book. And more great things have to come from Coach Keith Wood because, hey, Memphis is his home. So now that love of baseball from his youngest son is going to maybe spark off into an amazing book about the Memphis Red Sox in the very near future. So now we go to Jonathan and his time with Coach Wood.
All right, another episode of the JS Report this week. We're joined by the legend, Coach Keith Wood. Coach Wood, thank you for coming on.
Appreciate you having me, John. Glad to be on here today.
Breaking news, his book's out a few years now, but it's called Memphis Hoops. Coach Keith Wood is now an author also, / book title owner, so congratulations on that. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. But the first take would be, what kind of, from your Millington coaching days, from your Sheffield days too, we're not going to go too far back with your Sheffield days, but just talk about your Millington coaching days first, and then what kind of, from coaching at Sheffield to Millington to a higher classification, was the difference for you?
Well, you know, when I moved from Sheffield to Millington in 2001, it's a couple years ago now, John.
Yeah.
It was going from a AA school, but, you know, AA basketball in the late 90s in Memphis was solid. Jimmy Snap Hunter, you might have heard the name before. So there's some guys, Ced Wilson, that played for the 49ers, was over there at Melrose. Chris Adams, who coaches at Hillcrest right now, played at Melrose, was a point guard over there with Darrell Eason in their backcourt. So they were definitely tough. Won a couple of city championships at Melrose. So the competition, night in and night out at the AA level in the city in the late 90s definitely showed me the ropes, gave me some great experiences. I made the move from a AA program to a AAA program like Millington when I went out there in 2001. You know, when I got to Millington, inherited Elvin Taylor, one of the top 5 scorers in the city at the time. Inherited Jermaine Daly, who ends up going to have a nice pro career overseas. Dwayne Robinson, an NAIA All-American. So, you know, I had some nice talent. I had some nice runs. There were years at Millington we had some just great kids and we competed, but there were some years we had talent and great kids and we were able to get after it. And so just a great experience overall. You know, altogether 17 years coaching high school basketball, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So what kind of mindset could you tell these players these days, you know, regarding coaching?
Well, I think one, for these young guys, right, like and I think the way the NLI is moving and the portal, a lot of these guys at the current moment are like, you know, if I don't get an opportunity to touch the floor right now, that I'll just, you know, pick up my bags and move to the next location. I think, you know, even back when I was, coaching at both Sheffield and Millington, you started there, you were going to finish there. There wasn't, you know, a portal or a way out. And I think the ability to have to sit, right, and so earn your time, you know, like I think one of the best players I had was this kid, Tashawn Holmes, who was a 5A running back of the year, but he came off the bench his junior year and by far might have been the best athlete on the team, but he had to compete and earn his time, right? And what a great experience for him. He goes on to have a great career at Arkansas State, playing football, but I think the understanding the need and the ability to compete. And sometimes when a coach is sitting you down, he's trying to tell you something. He's not telling you he doesn't like you.
Right.
He's trying to tell you you're not ready, right? What else do I need to do to put myself in that situation, to be prepared, to be ready, to be successful, to help the team win? And I think for the young guys, if they can just get some of that and understand that, that'll be a great help moving forward for those guys.
I know some achievements that you had under Millington were pretty successful too.
Yeah, we had some good runs.
Yeah.
I think the '08 run.
The talent from top to bottom to me, like our district, is still
Right.
kind of crazy too. I was talking about Anthony.
Right, Anthony played for Maurice Miller. Man, I was coaching at Millington when Miller was over at Raleigh, Egypt.
Yeah.
Tarico White was at Craigmont at the same time. So you got two guys that are going to high majors. One to Georgia Tech, one to Ole Miss. Tarico had at least a cup of water in the NBA. And so, man, you're talking about night in and night out. And at Bolton with Reggie Williams wasn't
Little Reggie.
Little Reggie over there was getting after it. And, I mean, Bartlett, Hubie Brown, had just, when I got to Millington in '01, or Smith, excuse me, Hubie Smith, apologize. Hubie had just won the state championship, right? So, there's a ton of talent over in that league at that time and in AAA. And then you mentioned you had Cordova. Dwayne Lee was there. Keith Lee, so you want to talk about Keith Lee at Memphis Hoops. I had an opportunity to coach against Keith's son, Dwayne. And I'll tell you what, he was a problem in the post. Oh, a serious problem. Not to mention, on the wing was Kenley Sellers, if you remember him. There, and then the guard ends up playing running back for the Texans. You talk about some talent.
Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a ton of talent. And, it was just a great time.
And great coaching from top to bottom as well, because
You couldn't come in and not be prepared.
Right.
Because if you weren't prepared, they were going to hand it to you. So I think that was one of the things I was most proud of, that every time we came in, we were ready to get after it.
I think that's what I love about our district. Like I talked about over and over, from top to bottom. It's like SEC all over again. From top to bottom regarding players, coaching staffs, you name it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many great coaches. Like Coach Gales puts his effort in year out for Cordova.
Right.
And, just talk about your favorite game, maybe, just as a...
Well, you know what? I think there was a night that we retired Ahmad Galloway's uniform at Millington, and we were actually competing against Mumford. And I've never seen Millington's gym so packed. We turned away about 500 people at the door.
Wow.
And so Ahmad and Tyrone Calico came in limousines, and they packed the whole one side. And we started the game. The kid I had, Jermaine Daly, was 6'6". The first 4 goals of the game were dunks, and he dunked on 3 dudes and took their souls. And it was, now they had a kid, Hardaway, that was a solid player, one of the top 5 scorers in the city. And that game just went back and forth, a standing room only crowd. So for me, that Munford-Millington rivalry, you talk about Bartlett-Bolton or today Bartlett-Arlington, those are great rivalries, but that Munford-Millington rivalry, 2001, 2002, that was an experience to be in, and that's probably one of my favorite games.
How about that region, though?
The
Omar Arena days, I'm telling you, way back.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take you on. That '08 team a couple years later went out to Liberty. Liberty had just won the state championship the year before, and a group with Mike Young, Steve Kerr, Ryan Ware, Kyle Lewis. We just went out there and at their home court beat them in the first round of the regional, and we were down like 10-12. But I looked at that regional game, and I said the games we played against Raleigh, Egypt, Craigmont, Bartlett, and Cordova.
Got you already.
We're prepared. We were the
Right.
4th best team coming out of that league. And by far, we were better than the number 1 team on the other side. And in fact, when I got done that night, I picked up the phone and called a couple of my partners, and we had won every single game in the matchup on the other side. It just showed that league that we were in was that good.
And I love talking history with you, but we'll talk a little bit more history in the next segment.
Sounds good.
All right, take 2 this week, Coach Wood. First of all, I know you're a family man first. Just talk about your sons a little bit more in general regarding our listeners, because they did play some sports as well in
Right.
high school. I know you retired from coaching now, and well, we can call it that. You're helping out the community still a little
Right.
bit, but you're just kind of not coaching on that sideline. But what kind of, with your family, your kids playing sports, one of them's a referee, for the state of Tennessee, and one of them's playing college baseball. What kind of encouragement can you tell your sons that are refereeing right now that you coached under, and your son playing college baseball?
Right, I think so. The first thing for me as a coach, I always said God, family, school, and ball. I think Thomas Sellers one year did a great article on Father's Day, and I've still got a copy of that at the house. I'd always had my sons with me. If you were at Sheffield, my oldest son Cameron was right there the entire time.
Right.
At Millington, you would see my older son Cameron. if he wasn't in the back gym shooting, or the baby boy was there. You know, my middle son's autistic, and so I think there was an opportunity for me to teach the players what autism's like, right? And so with 3 sons, my oldest is now 26. He referees in the city with TSSAA. A lot of time doing games in Memphis and Shelby County. So you know, he's out there and he's still engaged with the game. My youngest son is a senior, which is hard for me to imagine because he was born right after I got the job in Millington. Seems like yesterday, but that was 21 years ago. He's a senior at Rockhurst University, Division II school, where he's playing baseball. Right now he's actually on an internship in Kansas City, playing in a summer league, doing really well. And it's just a chance when I put the clipboard down to spend more time being dad, right? And so if we talk about God, family, school, and ball, I wouldn't trade those years watching my youngest play baseball. You know, he played for Buster Kelso at Christian Brothers High School. I had a great career. Unfortunately, his senior year was the COVID year. They had lost in the state finals when he was a junior. And so, you know, it was tough to watch as a parent. But at the same time, to have these conversations, to be involved with them, and that's a real thing, you know. And I've had a lot of friends that I've coached with, colleagues, that talk about, you know, they missed a piece of their sons' lives or their daughters' lives, right? And so, you know, I had 17 years on the sideline. Like I said, I wouldn't trade it for the world. But on the other hand, I also had 10 solid years, 11 years, 12, whatever it is now, of being a baseball dad. And so I think that's every bit as important to me in the bigger picture. I try to stay engaged with the game as much as I can, but you know, this is a nice opportunity here talking with you today, John, about the game of basketball. So, you know, those sort of things, you know, make an old man smile every so often.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for saying what you said, because the coach have always told me, like you said, in that particular order, those come first before basketball. Because when, you know, I don't know if you remember this, but I did manage a basketball team.
Right.
You know, back at Bartlett back in the day, early 2000s when we faced y'all. But the same mindset was with Coach Smith and Coach Harrington. Because when my junior year, I'll get a little bit more detail on this, but a lot of people don't know. I managed a basketball team my 2002 to 2004. My junior year, I was struggling with 2 classes, Spanish 2 and geometry. And I was in the middle of a university path because, you know, everybody had university path or technical path back then. And I'm like, dang, junior year was our best talent. Other than, you know, Ben Frederick dropping out of school because, you know, we could have gone to state that year.
Right.
And I'm like, coaches like yourself, like that's the reason I'm glad that we have had that friendship over the years, because you've always said those orders. Because my junior year, that Spanish 2 in geometry, Spanish 2, for example, we always had to listen to opera music during our test, which I don't know how that's illegal, but you know. And in our geometry, my calculator died the day of the exam, basically, that type of stuff. So I had to do summer school my junior year, and I'm like, so I told Coach Smith and Coach Harrington straight up, I'm like, guys, I don't think I'm going to be able to catch that many games this year. And they're like, why do you say that? From practices and whatnot. And they're like, well, I'm struggling these 2 classes. You know, and they're like, summer school. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go to summer school, but I'd rather do tutoring. You know, that type of stuff, which I ended up going to summer school for geometry. But tutoring comes first, and then he said basketball comes later. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to the banquet, per se, and then Coach Smith was like, hey, I'm going to call you up on the stage. And I'm like, okay, what did I do? You know, that type of stuff. But those coaches these days care about the kids' grades because they know how important the grades are. Well, the coaches pulled me up and they're like, Jonathan might not have been at a lot of games, like important games throughout the district, travel, you know, and et cetera, but he always focused on his academics first. So he gave me, like, as a prime example, you know, grades do come first, you know, regarding that mindset, and then basketball can come later mindset.
Right. I think, you know, I think one of my favorite stories is Mike Young, 2008, over at Millington. You know, in the middle of league play, we got a heck of a squad going on. Right? A great season going on, and Mike was struggling in about 3 classes, so we sat Mike down for 2 weeks. Yeah. And I sat him down for 2 weeks in the middle of league play, and now I ran him like he's probably never been run before, but he understood that was, to me, more important. Now, the other side of the story is when Mike graduated, I actually went to his house in North Haven, picked him up, put all of his suitcases and everything he had for college, and drove him up Highway 51 to Dyersburg State Community College. You know, on one side, if I'm going to say God, family, school, and ball in that order, then I'm going to treat Mike as if he's one of my own sons. And I did what I would have done for my sons, I did for Michael Young. And I'll be honest, when he passed away a few years ago, that was the hardest funeral I've ever been to. But at the same time, what I did for Mike, I would have done for any of the guys that played for me. And I think that's important, right? And so I really admire guys like John Harrington who do that over at Briarcrest, and Coach Smith, you know, the guys that are doing it the right way. Because at the end, you know, at the end of the day, we're not going to count state championships. We're going to count lives changed. And that's what really is important.
All right, that's what I take two. All right, take three. Now we're going to talk about Memphis Hoops by good old Coach Wood. Coach Wood, talk about the book, Memphis Hoops.
Oh, John, I think, you know, when we talk about the kids these days and you ask them, you know, they know about Penny Hardaway, you know, and if you live in Memphis, you're a Memphis kid, your dream is to play at the University of Memphis, right? So my question is, why is he so engaged? He doesn't need the money. Penny Hardaway's NBA career, all-star, all the accolades, little Penny. He doesn't need the money. So why is Penny Hardaway coaching at the U of M and putting everything, every part of who he is as a man, as a coach, into the program? It's real simple. Played for a guy by the name of Larry Finch, right? And so this book, Memphis Hoops, tells the story of Larry Finch, right? So Larry Finch isn't the first black player at the University of Memphis, or at the time was Memphis State. He's the first black star, right? And he takes Memphis State to the Final Four in 1972-73, where they lose to Bill Walton and UCLA, right? But this was only 5 years after Martin Luther King was assassinated, right? And so for me as a kid that grew up in New York, a lot of my friends will ask me, well, racially, what goes on down in Memphis? Why did Martin Luther King get shot here, right? And so Larry Finch, what he did, what that Tiger team did, was it brought together white Memphis and black Memphis into the Mid-South Coliseum, and it united the city at a time that it so desperately needed to be united. You know, for 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon, the Mid-South Coliseum was packed, and people weren't talking about white and black. They were talking about that blue and gray, those Tigers, right? What Ronnie Robinson and Larry Finch were doing with Larry Keenan, right? And so this book really talks about that, but then it takes into the story, and you know, we've won a national championship in Memphis, right? And we got one of the most storied basketball coaches in the entire country. His name's Jerry Johnson over at Lemoyne Owen. See, a lot of people don't know about the Lemoyne Owen story, the 1975 story with Robert Newman and Clint Jackson, two local products that take Lemoyne and win the first ever Division III national championship, right? This was before Division III was non-scholarship, right? So these guys do something incredible, but because it's on the other side of the tracks, we forget that it's there. So I've infused that. Larry Finch played for Verties Sails over at Melrose, right before he becomes the head coach at Southwest. You know, and Verties Sails was the first black assistant coach. He laid the groundwork, all right? And so when Dana Kirk gets the head job in 1979, Larry Finch comes back and becomes the assistant coach. And then Dana Kirk, with Coach Finch on the sideline, go all the way to the 1984 Final Four, losing to Villanova, right? And Keith Lee, Andre Turner, great squads, right? So you just got this huge history of Memphis basketball. And then Larry Finch becomes the first African-American coach, not just in Memphis, in the entire South, right? There's no Southeastern school, no SEC school is hiring an African-American as head coach. Now, let's bring Penny back in, because in 1990, when Penny graduates from high school, Larry Finch, he's got to shore up the city. A lot of guys are running over to Arkansas to Nolan Richardson, 40 minutes of hell, right?
Right.
Penny signs. He's a Prop 48 kid. Larry Finch just puts his arm around him and says, go to class, you're going to play. Now, did you know that Penny got shot in the foot that year?
I heard about that story.
And instead of making it a big issue, Larry Finch was always the quiet, reserved guy who said, you know what, you made a mistake. I'm going to come back in, I'm going to put my arm around you, I'm going to love you, and we're going to do this thing the right way. And so he never complained about Proposition 48. He never complained about the rehab. And Larry Finch did everything he could to help Penny out. Now, Penny's junior year, right, his junior year, David Vaughn blows out a knee, so the Tigers don't get as far as they could. Now, at the end of the season, if Larry Finch was all into himself,
right,
he'd have told Penny, why don't you come back for your senior year, we can go win it, right? He said, no, son, you're about to make a lot of money. right? You always have a home here in Memphis. This is your home, but you need to chase your dream, right? So this is why Penny Hardaway bleeds blue and gray. This is why he does what he does. And I think this book will help you understand, help the readers out there in your audience get a better understanding of what happened. So so far, this is just a great opportunity to share. You know, the book's done incredibly well. It's been received well. Finished #1 in the series, number 15 for the publisher. And man, I'm just excited to have an opportunity to come in today and talk to you a little bit about Memphis Hoops.
And I can't wait to finish the rest of it too, but I'm going to put it on the spot.
Knock yourself out, John. Let's see what you got.
Mount Rushmore for college basketball coaches that you've enjoyed watching, and high school coaches as well.
Right, so now you know I'm from upstate New York, so Jim
That's fine.
Boeheim's going to be on there, right? So I think you got Boeheim. To be honest, as far as that, Roy Williams,
Okay.
Kansas and North Carolina, didn't really have a
Can't be
chance.
and pass, by the way.
Right, so if I would have had an opportunity to go back, I've watched the game tape of the 72-73 team, John Wooden.
Okay.
Of course, I've read all of his stuff on the Pyramid of Success. And, you know, to throw another name in there, I like John Calhoun over at UConn, right? So you can see my Big East roots coming out there. But, you know, I think in the book itself, Dana Kirk, you know, everybody that I've talked to and read about said in a huddle, in the last 30 seconds of the game, you don't want anybody else except for Dana Kirk down there. Now, Dana Kirk got in a little bit of trouble, right? We play that out. Otis Sanford does a great job in the commercial appeal of exposing that. But as far as with the clipboard, Dana Kirk would have been in there. So did I give you 5? It would go 6 right there. So that's fine. How's that? Does that work?
I love it.
All right,
I
that's
love the
good.
Big East connection.
Not for a kid from up north, you know.
Yeah.
There's no choice. In fact, if you noticed, a lot of my out of bounds plays, or I'm a big 2-3 zone
Right.
guy, so you'd hear Syracuse called.
Absolutely, I remember those days.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm surprised we didn't have a plug for Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my take 3 with Coach Wood. Take 4, Coach. We're going to talk about what kind of encouragement or motivation you can tell players out there, since you were a coach for so many years in the Memphis area as well. What kind of encouragement or motivation can you tell players like Anthony was just here? He did a great job by telling these players what to do next and whatnot. What can you tell these unsigned seniors or upcoming seniors or any players that are going off to college right now?
Right. So number one, really appreciated having you a chance to talk with Anthony, right, and just hear Anthony's story. What a great young man. And really, when people talk about the future of the game and the future of Memphis basketball, Anthony is a great example of how great our city is, right? This city always has talent, and Anthony's a fine example of that. If you want advice, right, I think what I would tell my players is basketball players are made from March to November, not from November to March. What are you doing when no one else is watching, right? I think, the AAU circuit is important, right? An opportunity to get exposure. And then Anthony alluded to the social media, right? Don't pay too much attention to it because that's there. And I think that's important for these young guys.
Right.
But what I think they should do when they're on the AAU circuit is take the lessons and then go back to the practice gym. Back in the day, I would have just gone to the playground on a concrete playground and got the metal nets, the chain nets, and got out there and put some work in, right? You've still got to be able to fix the things that you can't do. If you just do what you're good at, that's nice, all right? But what you've got to work on what you lack, all right?
Right.
So if you got a nice pull-up jumper, right? You got a fadeaway, right? Can you get to the rack? What are some things that you can add to your game that college coaches are going to go, you know what? This is the type of kid I need in my program. And one of the things that I've heard recently, watch a lot of reels, on basketball, and I think one of the things I've seen is this: college coaches aren't just watching when you play, right? So you're at these exposure camps and things like that. When your coach, even if it's your AAU coach on the circuit, takes you out of the game, when you walk over to the bench, are you giving everybody 5? Are you positive? Or are you looking at him like he's lost his mind because he pulled you out of the game, right? And so every bit as much as that college coach saw what you did on that floor, he also saw what you did on the way off the floor, right? And I think that's important that you understand those sorts of things because you're talking about competitive, right? And when you get to that next level, one of my prime examples is one of my best players in Millington was 6'6" with a 40-inch vertical, right? Do you know how many guys are out there that are 6'6" with a 40-inch vertical? When you talk about nationally, that number is
Right.
huge, right? So There's going to be somebody else out there that's bigger, stronger, faster, jumps higher. But if you're out there putting the work in and you're improving every single day, right? And another realize I get 1% better every day. I love that. If you're getting that 1% every day, then good things are going to happen, right? And just like Anthony, he looked at Freed Hardman and then he made the decision. I think it's Ranger JUCO right there down in Texas. He's got to go to a spot where he thinks, he can get better, right? And he's going to be pushed. And that's the important thing. I don't need somebody to tap me on the back every day and tell me how great, because that all feels good. We all want to hear that.
Right.
But at the same time, what are you doing to put yourself in a position to be successful not only today, but a year, 2 years down the road?
Absolutely. And anybody can follow you on Twitter or Instagram?
Well, you can find me on Dr. Wood, Coach Wood 90, right, is on there. I've got my own website, www.keithbwoodauthor.com, and you can find me there, both Instagram and Facebook under Keith B. Wood Writes. Lots of places to find Coach Wood these days. And, man, I'm excited, but not only about the Memphis Hoops book, but my next book is on the Memphis Red Sox, Negro League Baseball in the city of Memphis. And so we actually were Major League.
Right.
And so I think that's been keeping me busy, and it's another way to tap into a story that people in Memphis need to hear.
Coach Wood, thanks.
Appreciate you having me, John.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Coach Keith Wood, we appreciate you taking time to visit with us today and promote this amazing book. How can people do what I'm doing right now, get their hands on this book?
Well, Thomas, thank you for having me. If you need a copy of the book, obviously you can go on Amazon, right? Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. But if you're here in town, best thing for you to do is head over to Oxbow, the old Dixie Fitters, right over off of Poplar, right? You can get the Waxler family does a great job over at Oxbow. Or if you want to drive down Poplar a little farther west, you can head over to Novel Books and get you a copy of Memphis Hoops there. So, man, either place, I would definitely appreciate it, man. It's a great read, man. I really, every time someone picks up a copy of the book, they've got their own personal story.
Yeah.
And those are the stories that I'd love to hear. So please go out and get a copy of Memphis Hoops.
And I think you should give this to almost every prep coach in the area so they can read it to their kids or have their kids hold on to a very important part of our vital, rich history here in Memphis. And maybe we can take pride into our future.
There it
They
is.
get their hands book. And you said you got another project coming up, baseball related.
Right.
Are you heading up to Kansas City to watch it?
Right, I'm going to watch my son play up in Kansas City. Right, he's going to college summer league, right? He's going to All-Star game. He's going to be at Kaufman. I'm excited about that. But the book, it's called The Memphis Red Sox. Actually, the book is about the Memphis Red Sox. The book is going to be called Black Diamonds, Bluff City. Right?
Okay.
So stories from the Memphis Red Sox of the Negro Leagues. And we were Major League. Memphis had Major League Baseball.
Wow.
Verdell Mathis. Did you know the first African-American pitcher in the Major Leagues, Dan Bankhead,
That's the name. That's not
signed with the Dodgers in '47, played
Wow.
with Jackie in the World Series?
Wow.
Was playing in Memphis in July. In August, he's up in Brooklyn playing with the Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
So there's stories that have got to be told. And in fact, there's a catcher from the Red Sox, Larry Brown. He's been on the Hall of Fame ballot. Was on the ballot this past year when Buck O'Neil got in.
Yeah.
And so he's right there on the edge. We're talking about some great players. A great story. Black-owned franchise over in South Memphis. Stadium stood right behind BTW High School. So, man, it's a great story. And hopefully, when the book comes out next spring, hopefully your viewers will pick up a copy.
And you gotta give me a call so we can do it.
Will do, without a shot.
Well, Coach, I hope I'm gonna challenge you. Make sure you get showboats taken care of, and even the Memphis River Kings. Get our hockey in there.
If we got time, we'll see what we can do.
Okay, well, appreciate it, Coach, and we catch you next time.
All right.